Hi everyone. So today we are going to look at a rum from the United Kingdom, Scotland to be precise. And if you've been paying attention to the world of the rumiverse, you will know that there are certain countries that seem to have started almost out of nowhere over the last 10 years to be starting a whole bunch of small little craft distilleries that are not so much redefining the world of rum so much as adding to its richness and its luster, even if it's just for their own countries. Now, you've always seen distilleries start up in the United States with pretty much middling results. Canada's kind of started to get its act in gear. Australia, of course, as you know, has been a personal thing of mine. But the UK bears watching as well. And it's not just because there's a whole bunch of whiskey guys who are trying their hands at rum, perhaps because it's cheaper or perhaps because they think they have something to add to it. But what you've got here is a number of people who are simply going straight into rum without any of the usual stopping points, like whiskey or gin, for that matter. One of these is Ninefold Distillery, which is in the southwest of Scotland and run by a guy called Kit Carruthers, a very charming red-headed chap that I met in 2023, I think it was, at the Whiskey Exchange Rum Show. And he started his distillery around 2018 on the family estate, you might say, in an old cattle shed, or two of them that were repurposed for for making a distillery and a bonded warehouse. And they put a hybrid pot still in it. And by 2019, he was starting to make we started to lay down aged stocks for rum. Now, his first rum, of course, was a white unaged rum, which, unlike in Australia, they can actually call rum and sell it as such. And that made some interesting waves, and people kind of liked it. I have a review of that coming up sooner or later. But eventually, the aged stocks started to become very interesting, and one of them is the Watson's Reserve No.1, which is this one. And this sort of like goes into the directions that he wanted to go in, which was experimentative, because Watson, who by the way is the distillery cat, they named all the experimentals after the cat, which I quite like. But what Kit is doing is he's playing around with the aging, he's playing around with the barrels, he's playing around perhaps with the fermentation, mostly molasses, of course. He's playing around with the distillation techniques and so on. What he's coming up with is something actually quite interesting. One of them is this. There are others by now, of course. I think he may be into his next experimental batch or whatever. Now, this is a 3-year and 2-month old rum. The label, by the way, sometimes says 1 month. That's wrong. It's actually 3 years, 2 months. And it's basically a double-aged rum. It was first aged in American oak for around 2 years and a bit, and then it was repurposed into an Oloroso cask, which may have actually gone through whiskey at some point in time. But these competing casks actually make for a very interesting rum, which is, by the way, at 59%, so it's not for the meek. It is, on the other hand, quite intense in its own way, without actually being bitchy for something that's so young. I've seen worse that is older, if you know what I mean. So, what else can I tell you about this? Essentially, the nose is really quite interesting. First of all, it starts off almost like meatiness. There's a certain sort of umami to it. There is a fair amount of caramel, butterscotch, a few grapes and so on. There's a little bit of sourness lurking in the background there. Nothing that you'd kind of walk away from. It is a bit startling, to say the least, though, if you really started to take your time and let it open up. The taste, such as it is, oh man, that still really is quite nice. The taste continues on that, but it becomes a little bit more balanced at this point. So what you're seeing, or what you're tasting, if you will, right, is very traditional flavors now, right? You got the caramel, you got the butterscotch, you got a bit of cinnamon spice, a touch of nutmeg, not too much. Vanilla, of course, you're not going to get away from that. You're going to get a little bit of the barrel influence, so a little bit of tannins, a touch of bitterness. There's a very, very traditional stuff with a few fruits to round it off, mostly raisins, grapes, that kind of thing, a prune or two. It isn't breaking the bank. It isn't actually, well, when I say that, what I mean to say, it isn't reinventing the wheel. It's not something absolutely and brand new. It is, in point of fact, very solid for what it is, and it kind of like blows Bacardi out of the water simply because it's so much better than that. Now, I did notice that this was going on one of the auction sites not too long ago in late 2023 for, I think it was like £180 or something like that, maybe £200. So seriously, people are looking at this thing, and perhaps one of the reasons why is because, unfortunately, only 30 bottles made it out of the casks after the angels took their bite of the cherry. But it is a very nice rum. There are more like it out there, and even if you can't get this one, give Ninefold a shot, because they really are making some interesting stuff, and you don't have to go all the way to Australia to get one of these new guys to see what they're doing. So, there is new stuff out there. There is better stuff. I'm rating this just around 84, 85 points, and I think that's just about right. I think other people have liked it as well. Take a look around at my show notes, and I'll give and the review that I'm writing, and you'll be able to see some of the links to other places that have talked about this. Until then, until the next time, take care. Bye bye.